what's so important is good care for our seniors. And there are not enough homes open right now for them. More people are turning 65 and 75 and 85 every single day. I'm a little bit nervous about what's coming, that there may not be enough housing for people. Even though it is a process and you have to learn a lot, it's a really exciting process. It's a really creative process. And I just hope to encourage other people to do the same.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor! 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 Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast. Today, we have another fantastic episode. This one is going to be about residential assisted living, specifically memory care. This episode is with my friend, Dr. Schloe Kilman. Her and her husband, Nick, are working on opening their first residential assisted living home, specifically a memory care mansion in Brandon, Mississippi. This is going to be incredible. And in this podcast episode, we talk about Dr. Kilman's experience as a geriatrician and why that has led into the perfect opportunity to start investing in residential assisted living, to build a memory care mansion, to better take care of her patients and to better serve the community while making fantastic returns that will put her on the road towards financial freedom, where she can spend more time with her family and might open up the doors to be able to practice medicine how she wants to. So this is a really cool podcast episode where we talk about the basics and the importance of getting into networking and being willing to take some education steps to get you going forward in the right direction, and the importance of mentorship, or at least being in the right room of people to help you succeed even faster. We do talk about the RALRoom Assisted Living Mastermind that we recently launched. Dr. Kilman and her husband, Nick, are in the RALRoom Mastermind. They talk about that in the podcast, and it is an absolutely incredible opportunity. If you are looking for a mastermind community that will help you buy your first or your next residential assisted living home, the RALRoom Assisted Living Mastermind is the place for you. This is not a self-study course. This is not a one-on-one mentorship. This is right in the middle, and it is amazing. So if you're interested in joining the RALRoom Assisted Living Mastermind, click the link in the show notes. That will actually reward Schloe and Nick and give them affiliate income. So if just 5 people sign up, their membership will be free. It is amazing. So do that, help Schloe out. And without further ado, let's get started with today's episode on memory care mansions with my friend, Dr. Schloe Kilman. Dr. Schloe Kilman, welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast tonight. I'm so excited that this is the first podcast episode, and I know it's going to be great. So thanks for taking the time to speak with us tonight. How are you?
Oh my gosh. Doing well. Thank you. I'm a little bit nervous, but you're very easy to talk to. So I think it will be great.
Well, thank you. It's going to be great. You're going to crush it, and super low threat, conversational. Mind telling folks listening a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a geriatric physician. I'm actually double board certified in family medicine and geriatrics. I did the fellowship for a year after I did my residency. It's kind of interesting. I didn't really plan on going into geriatrics, but I did a rotation in my second year of family medicine and kind of just fell in love with all the different things. I am practicing right now at an academic center, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy that I get to be in the clinic. I get to do different talks to the community, lectures to medical students. So I love that I get to do something a little bit different every day.
Kind of truly full spectrum family medicine, it sounds like, with a focus more on seniors. But
minus the LD.
Yeah, which is okay. You probably wouldn't want to be delivering a baby right now. All good from that perspective. Was there a moment in particular with geriatrics where you're like, hey, this is where I need to be? Or is there something that really draws you to that patient population?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there was a specific moment, but during that rotation, I was just exposed to all the different things geriatricians do. I think most people, we are basically just doctors for older folks. And that while that is true, it involves a lot more than just general. And I really enjoyed the specific focuses that we get to see. Things like end-of-life care. We get to be involved in taking patients off of certain medications, kind of dealing with folks who are on a ton of different medicines and paring those lists down. I get to prescribe exercise. I get to prescribe healthier diet, extra sleep. And sometimes if somebody's at the end of their life and maybe they have tried to avoid fried chicken their whole life, I get to say, you know what? You can have all the fried chicken you want. Those are tough days, but they're also kind of fun days. It's really just a completely different focus. We also look at things like frailty, ambulation, just kind of day-to-day functioning. I'm also really interested in dementia care, in learning about the different types and helping caregivers kind of basically take the best care of their loved one and give the best quality of life.
We had a geriatrics clinic in residency. It was at Eglin Air Force Base, and it was just so much fun getting to talk to those folks. Some of them fought in World War II, and just these stories was so awesome. And interestingly, that clinic, they gave us 40-minute blocks to see patients, which I think we should have for every patient. It was amazing to have 40 minutes to really get to talk to them. There's so much with geriatrics, with polypharmacy, like you mentioned, and so many nuances that it was crazy to see. Sometimes stopping inappropriate medications made such a huge difference. I'm afraid that if that patient was going to a clinic that was like the typical 15 to 20 minute appointment, which is really like 5 minutes, that would have got missed, and then it would have led to poor outcomes down the road. It's so important what you guys do, and few things make me happier than stopping medications on a patient. And geriatrics, it really makes a huge difference.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. And I've definitely seen that time and time again. Most of our seniors are seeing 3, 4, 5 specialists. And so the heart doctor may want them on this particular medicine that affects the kidneys and doesn't know they're already seeing a nephrologist or a kidney doctor and they're on some other medicine. Really interesting to sit down with somebody's medications. There's actually been a couple times this has happened before. I had a husband and wife come not too long ago to the clinic to see me. They literally had like these bucket medicines. I just pulled them all out and spread them all out. And it took like an entire counter's worth. And there were like 3 of metoprolol and 2 Plavix, and they didn't know because one might say the generic name and one might say the brand name. So they're actually taking double or triple medicine anyway. It's just a mess and all these different interactions. It's really fun to pare those things down. You tend to feel a lot better after a while.
I used to love like, oh, I'm taking the purple pill or the pink pill or whatever they give me. I'm like, this is what we want in the bottle label. We got the plastic bag before. It's always something, that's for sure. You mentioned dementia, and you like taking care of patients with dementia and caring for them and helping out the caregivers, which being a caregiver for a patient with dementia is such a challenging task. Shout out to all the caregivers out there because it is incredibly challenging, and thanks for doing what you do there too. We're going to talk about assisted living and memory care. Was that interest in taking care of dementia patients or memory care patients, was that what really led you to wanting to start a memory care home, or what kind of led you towards assisted living, Chloe?
For sure. I've been with my husband now for 7 years. We met about 7 years ago. Early in our relationship, I had kind of just, I guess I was a 3rd-year resident and I was going into my fellowship. I did my fellowship, but we had a lot of discussions about what were my next steps. What do I want to do next? And so, of course, I wanted to practice. I wanted to be an attending. I wanted to see what that was like. I started making some decent money for the first time in my life. And then I kind of just thought, is this what I'm going to do forever? It's not that I got bored, but I just thought I've kind of been in this box of school, residency, fellowship, all the things. Now I've kind of made it. You've probably heard the term arrival fallacy. And so a lot of us, we finally make it and we've arrived at this place where we thought we wanted to be. I remember talking to my mother about it saying, oh man, if I can just get into med, I can pass and become an attending, like that's going to be like the summit of my life. That's the biggest, most awesome thing I can think of. She said, no, you're going to find another goal. You're going to find another thing. You're going to find some other summit, and it was quick. It was interesting how quickly that happened. Nick and I were always kind of thinking about how we would really love to have more time together, more time with the kids. I just started listening to different podcasts, actually reading different books, listening to some of the physicians who are into real estate. One day we heard, and I wrote it down, Doctors Building Wealth. That was the name of the podcast with Leti, who I don't know personally. I've listened to several of their podcasts, and they had somebody on. Dr. Sindil Christian is also one of my heroes who was doing assisted living as a physician. And I thought, this is it. This is my niche. This is my spot. This is a way to give back and help seniors and also be creative, like create something that can help out my family financially, but allow us time freedom and creativity.
I want to go back real quick to kind of those mountaintop moments, because I think we've all probably hit that arrival fallacy, those mountaintop moments, those summit moments. You want to describe them. And I think it's hard. I was thinking about this the other day. And like you mentioned, it's like, hey, I want to get into college and everything will be great. You get into college and I want to get into med school and everything will be great. Then I want to graduate residency and then I want to be attending. There's all these mountaintop moments in life. And really, when you look back at it, you're like, man, the journey was really fun. I wish I enjoyed the journey a lot more in the climb up the mountain. There's going to be lots of moments in life, but there's going to be way more time spent climbing up the mountain. I think that that's really important too. Sindil is an amazing guy. His partner Mel was on the podcast. He was one of like the 5th or 6th episode, I think, but there was something wrong and we tried everything we could to fix it. We couldn't get it. And then he's very busy. And so we're going to get him back on the podcast here soon. So Sindil, hope you're listening, buddy. Thanks.
Dr. Renat did an amazing job too. I just heard her on your podcast.
Yeah. Her first podcast too. She wouldn't mind me saying she was very nervous. She did amazing. Sindil, what he's doing is awesome. I heard a podcast with him too. I don't know if it was the same one with Letty and Kenji, but I was like, man, this is crazy. And then my next thought was like, how in the world does a cardiologist have time to do this? Really cool. I would encourage folks to look up Dr. Sunil Krishnan. We'll get him on the podcast for sure. But you heard him and that kind of opened your eyes to assisted living being a possibility. What was next for you?
Great questions. I say we heard it, Nick and I, my husband, but I actually think I was the one who heard it first. And I came home and made him listen to it right away. He was like, oh, okay, this is cool. He has been working at Nissan for 20 years. He's an Air Force veteran. But when we met, I think he was very content in his position. He's also a single dad. And so he was very busy. I was busy. And I don't know, once things kind of slowed down and we were kind of at a stable place, we just started thinking, how do we build this really wonderful, somebody has a quote, what do you want to do with your one wild and precious life? And I just thought, what do we want to do with ours? We finally found each other. What do we want to do? What do we want to build? What do we want to grow? How can we help people, but also help ourselves and have a very fulfilling life and a wonderful family to spend time with and all those things? We just started looking into that space. We started looking around who's doing this. We found RALA, which is the Residential Assisted Living Academy. They do some online courses. They do an in-person 3-day course. So we went out to Phoenix, Arizona, and we did that 3-day course. I would say, without giving away too much information, there were pros and cons. We definitely met some good people. We did some good networking. I was really pumped. Like, okay, if they can do this, we can do this. We started looking around doing research. Then we came across Brett Shakavis, who is also doing that. He does kind of more of a high-end luxury model. He's got a very specific plan for the home. That just rang true. We really liked his model. The financials make sense, but it's also an excellent way to take care of our seniors. They would be getting the absolute best care. Unfortunately, at work, I see it all too often that our seniors are not getting great care at these sort of big box facilities. I see a lot of falls where the patient is unfortunately not found for hours, where they have some kind of an accident and they should have been taken to the hospital and given a CT scan and they weren't. Just not great care. Without naming any names or anything, I just feel like it's all too common. And I thought this is a nice small model where you can offer that one-on-one personalized care. So we're really, really excited about it.
I'm really excited to talk about your project here in a minute. In terms of the big box facilities, why do you think that is? Do you think it's largely not enough caregivers, like the caregiver to resident ratio is way too high? Why do you think that there's poorer outcomes in more of a big box facility compared to residential assisted living?
I think that's probably part of it. I also think the big boxes typically have 50 to 100 residents. We sort of secret shopped all of the ones in our area, and they typically have most, I would say, 50 to 100. And it was really interesting to do the secret shopping because I hear about it from my patients, but I've never actually been into the facilities until then. I'd maybe been to one or two, but otherwise not. And so it's interesting all of the different ways that they do this. There were some places we would walk in and we would not see a caregiver for 15 minutes, like nobody. You see residents wandering. There's just nobody there to support them and nobody there to help them. And I definitely think the ratio is a problem. I also think our caregivers are maybe not as well treated as they could be and maybe not as well paid as they could be. That's certainly a big problem. And I feel like there's a lot of turnover with those workers as well.
It's hard work for sure that the caregiver are doing. If someone's listening to this and they don't really understand what the difference is between a big box facility and a residential assisted living home, would you be able to explain that to them?
Sure. When we say big box facility, we're meaning they're really nice. They might be like a really beautiful facility from the outside. There's enough rooms in there to house 50 to 100 seniors, but oftentimes they're shared rooms. Oftentimes there's not enough caregivers, almost a dormitory type feel, I would say. Whereas a residential assisted living is typically 20, 16 or less. And from what I understand, that tip, it could be 1 or 2 residents, but I would say the model does best somewhere between 6 and maybe 16 residents. It's really more like a large home type feel. It's a lot cozier. You really get to know your co-residents. You get to know the caregivers. The idea, of course, is that we treat our caregivers and our staff equally well. They stick around and can build these relationships with the patients. Well, I say patients because I'm patient-centered, but really the residents. And the residents are happier, and then everybody's happier, and they can just have the best quality of life. I just think it's better care. There's more supervision. There's more interaction. It's good all around for everybody, I think.
Completely agree. It's such an incredible way to transform care for seniors and just really change that landscape. I love residential assisted living and love what you guys are doing with the memory care mansion. It's such a cool opportunity. Is there any thoughts in particular on why you think doctors are well suited to invest in residential assisted living, whether actively or passively? What are some thoughts behind that?
For sure. I absolutely think that is the case. And what's interesting is we've been networking with a lot of folks, meeting a lot of folks that are in the business. Maybe they're lenders or they're real estate agents. We've been joining the Chamber of commerce and try to just kind of get involved with other people in local businesses. And what's interesting is when I tell them I'm a physician, they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to hear about this. They're really excited about the fact that I know how to treat patients with dementia. And I also recently obtained a certification of dementia practitioner, which basically just means that I've gone through the course to learn how to communicate and how to kind of deal with the more day-to-day stuff that as a physician, I don't typically deal with. So I think they're really excited to hear about my level of expertise. And they also know as physicians, we garner a lot of trust and a lot of respect just by our titles. That is an amazing gift. And I feel very honored for that. And I won't say all of us maybe necessarily deserve it or deserve that level, but hopefully we live up to it. And that's certainly what I try to do. But they hear that immediately and they automatically kind of put their trust in you, which is amazing. I also think we're well suited for this because we have seen these problems. So we do know how to hopefully build systems around fixing these problems. We know how to care for people on a day-to-day basis if we've been through this particular type of training. But also we know how to provide good oversight. I plan to be the medical director, and I won't necessarily be the physician of the residents in the home, but as the medical director, I can kind of even look through charts a little bit here and there and say, oh, maybe this is why they're falling. They're on 2 certain medications that is causing them to fall, things like that. I think that makes us well suited. I also think that luckily most of us have pretty good incomes and we're looking for ways to sort of diversify that and get into real estate or other investments passively. And I think that makes us well suited for that. There's also amazing returns. It's an excellent way to give back. It's a really creative way to be involved in your community, I think.
Those are amazing answers. I don't really have anything else to add. You hit the nail on the head there. And yeah, it's true. The instant credibility from being a doctor does go a long way. And it's really cool to see that. But it's even cooler that it kind of puts you in opportunities to make a bigger impact, maybe sooner than you would otherwise, or just have more trust amongst like the family members and the residents and so forth, knowing like, hey, a doc owns this house or a doc is involved in some capacity in this. It's a really cool opportunity. Well, let's talk, if you don't mind, about your guys' project, your memory care mansion that you're working on. How did that come to be?
Well, we were really excited, of course, about the idea of doing this. And I'll be honest that once it kind of got down to brass tacks, I thought, oh my gosh, what are we doing? This is so scary because neither of us have done anything in real estate. We did actually start a business a couple years ago. We did a t-shirt business on Etsy. That was kind of our first foray into business. We didn't do very well, but it was really interesting and it was kind of fun. I will say the amount of work that it requires was a lot more than I anticipated for the return. We were out of that within probably 9 months, but it was still kind of interesting to kind of get acquainted with general business terms and how it works. And when we heard about this assisted living, we just thought this is just the right thing for us. This is, for me, just kind of, it seemed almost like a natural transition of my career. You know, I would still want to practice in some capacity, but hopefully someday I could go part-time or something like that. This could be kind of a different way to practice, kind of more of an oversight, but also get to use my creativity and all of that good stuff. Anyway, I've kind of rammed, but we decided to make it a reality. We are working with Brett as a mentor, and he's really helped us. We recently found some land that we want to build our home on, and hopefully 3 homes eventually. It's actually large enough for 3 homes, but right now we'll build 1. And so we're under contract for that right now. We're just kind of like can't believe it every day. It's really exciting.
What was that process like looking for land for the memory care homes?
That was really fun. We live outside of Jackson, Mississippi. We live in Brandon, which is a suburb. Jackson itself is kind of a large city, but Brandon itself is a lot smaller. It's a little more homey, but I will say there's not that many assisted livings in our area. There's a few of those bigger box facilities that I've talked about, but looking around, we didn't see anything like our model. We didn't see anything like what we're wanting to do. There's really no residential assisted living, or there may be 1 or 2, but they're typically a lot smaller, like 3 to 6 residents in the city. I won't say it is a town, but it's slightly rural in that there's a lot of country around. There's a lot of greenery. It's a very green, lush area. It was really fun to kind of look around. I will say it was a little bit difficult because we're looking for commercial land because the restrictions and the zoning and all of that is easier when you're talking about building something like this. We looked for a long time. We found a ton of residential areas that we liked, but it took us quite a while to find a nice commercial property. And this is actually the first one that we really fell in love with. We got really, really lucky. We saw a lot of places, but this is really the one that we wanted from the start. We're really lucky to be under contract for it. So it was really fun.
I heard you guys got some good news on the appraisal.
Yes, we did. The land appraised for almost 11% more than what we're going to pay for it. It's automatic equity, which is amazing. It's kind of interesting when you want to do something like this because we plan to build from the ground up, as you guys probably figured out. And so getting the land, we have to have a loan for that. Essentially, that loan will be eclipsed by a larger loan, but kind of a really interesting stepwise process that we have to go through. And putting down a small down payment here, we're still looking for an investor for the large part. But it's kind of an interesting, we're learning a ton. It's like a really interesting process.
Well, let's kind of talk about those steps, if you don't mind. You partner with Brett as a mentor, and we're learning soup to nuts memory care, which is awesome. Then was next step reaching out to zoning and figuring out like zoning and planning, and then buying the land?
Brett is great. He's got a really nice list about due diligence. What do you need to do? He's very much get on top of it, go speak to all these people first before even you need to. And so we did that. We followed his advice. We did all of that. We met with the zoning board. We met with the county. We met with the city. We met with the Department of Health, which was really interesting because they had heard of me somehow and were like, oh my God, Dr. Kilman's opening a memory care. I thought, that is so nice. I don't even know these people. I don't deserve this, but how nice. And they're like, we'll do everything we can to help you. I can't even believe that. We've met with the fire marshal and he was really excited about it. He must have gone home and told his father, who also works in used to work in memory care units, because his father called Nick one day and said, hey, I used to do this. If y'all need any help. It's just amazing how many different people have kind of come out of the woodwork to help us. We've been meeting folks at the chamber. We set up at a health fair. And so there were so many people that came by our booth and were like, oh my God, we're so glad you're doing this and you're doing it in our area. We can't wait. One of the biggest tips that I've learned going through all these steps is networking. I'm an introvert by nature. I always have been. And going through med school, you learn real fast how to talk to people. But it's certainly not something that came natural to me. Even now, when we go to these networking meetings, sometimes it's hard for me to talk to folks or approach folks. But it's been the number one thing that I would say that's helped us. And you guys have started this RALRoom Mastermind, which has actually been really amazing. When we first heard about it, we thought, well, what is this all about? We've never been part of a mastermind, but we knew it was you guys who we had met and felt comfortable with. And we thought, okay, it's a bunch of other people interested in the same thing. We all get together and talk about our experiences. It's just been an amazing form of networking. What I'm figuring out is as an adult, it's really hard to make friends. This networking, this online stuff, it's like making friends. It's like making adult friends who are interested in the same things you are. We're really excited to be a part of that as well.
Thanks, Chloe. We're so glad to have you and Nick in the RALRoom. If anybody listening to this is also like, hey, it's hard to make friends, or I want to find a community, or I want to learn how to open my first or next resident assisted living home, we'll include a link of Chloe as an affiliate in the show notes, so she'll get a portion of that. If just 5 people show up, her membership will be free. We can make that happen. That would be awesome.
What about that?
We just started. We're really looking forward to it. It was so cool too for us to see the folks that have joined, the like just high quality folks who are just getting after it. And interestingly, a lot of physicians, which I guess kind of makes a lot of them have listened to this podcast, but it's really cool to see docs understanding like, hey, this is a really awesome opportunity for me to get closer towards financial freedom, make a huge difference, impact my community and change it for the better and impact the care of seniors. It's just awesome. We're super, super excited about it and so excited to have you and Nick in the RALRoom, especially going through this journey, because what a cool experience to get to walk through with you guys of building this home and developing it. And then I just absolutely crushing it and building 2 more on your lot.
We really appreciate all the insight everybody has been offering. And I'm sure there's more to come.
We're all learning every day. I think that's what's great about being a doc too, is because we understand that lifelong learning principle. We understand there's just so much to learn in real estate and medicine, life in general. Thank you for the shout out for the RALRoom. That really means a lot. Going back to your guys' deal and what you're working on, after you guys found the land, is that when you started talking with SBA lending, or did that start after you realized, hey, it's time, we're going to home here in Brandon? Is that when you started reaching out to SBA?
Yes, I got a little bit off track there. We did start talking with SBA early as well. I mentioned the Department of Health and the zoning, fire marshal. We actually enlisted civil engineers pretty early. They're working on our site plan right now. We're getting some soil samples done and things like that on the land. But yeah, we started talking with the SBA lenders pretty much right away. We've also, to take down the land, we've got a loan, a commercial land loan from our local bank. We reached out to several different local banks pretty early and kind of got their rates and what they felt like they could do to help us. We really have been just kind of getting out there, telling everybody that we can about it, just to see. And like I said, folks are really helpful. We really wanted to get out there early, get our name out there, and then also, we want to be as open and honest as possible. I know a lot about medicine. I know a lot about taking care of seniors, but this is technically our second business, if you even count the Etsy t-shirt shop. But this is technically our first business. And that's why it's important, I think, to partner with other people who have that experience. That's why Brett has been so valuable. And that's why it's been so helpful just to hear from you and Charlie too. Also, we made a couple of different couple friends at the Real Estate Academy course. I've kind of kept in touch with them as well. And just kind of having people to bounce ideas off of has really been amazing. But yeah, we're in touch with the SBA folks. We're actually going to get to meet them in October, which is pretty interesting. That should be really fun. Kind of start really building that relationship in person. But we've actually already submitted a lot of things to them ahead of time, our financials and things like that, making sure we're all open and honest, above board. This is our first time. This is what we can contribute. This is what we're looking for. Can you help with this? We'll be happy to help with that. Just trying to be as transparent as possible.
That's great. What are some of the benefits of an SBA loan to folks that are listening? They're probably thinking like, oh, is this just a mortgage for the home, or is there more that goes into that?
There's definitely more. The SBA 7A loan has been recommended a couple of times to us by a few different people, and our mentor has been one of them, but certainly they mentioned that in the RALRoom course as well. It's a really good option for people who want to build an assisted living or even convert an existing home into an assisted living, because the SBA loan will cover the land. It will cover construction of the building, but it will also cover working capital to kind of get started, to kind of start hiring that staff before you're even open. It also has low payments at the start. From what I understand, it's interest-free payments for 6 months or something like that. And actually, you don't even have to make payments while they're building. So while you're having the building actually constructed, which can actually take quite a while, you make either no payments or interest-only payments. We've looked at so many different options. I don't remember right off the top of my head about this one, but basically they will loan you more than just what it costs for the land and for the construction. They'll help you with furniture. They'll help you with the salaries, the working capital, all the things that you need to get started. I do believe, and I've heard that it's a little bit of a longer process than some of the other loans out there, just because they really want to make sure that you're going to really do the work. But I also understand that they kind of hold your hand through it. There's people to help you through each phase. They kind of help you and supervise and things like that. So that's why we really think it's probably going to be our best option.
It's an amazing option to have everything wrapped in to one loan and a fairly low down payment. Do you know roughly what your down payment is going to be for your SBA loan?
We were told it would be 15%, which I understand can vary a little bit from place to place, but we are kind of under that impression that that's sort of their standard.
That's amazing that you can build an incredible home, buy this land, have the working capital, 15% down.
And then give you time until you're up and running to really make the bigger payments. I can't really ask for better than that.
It's such a cool opportunity. And you guys are working with Live Oak Bank, right?
Yes.
They're amazing. They do tons of assisted living. So if folks want to reach out to Live Oak Bank, Shep and Mackie are both folks we've talked to. Mackie's coming to talk to the RALRoom, I think in October as well. If I remember, that would be really cool to get their expertise there too and be able to pick their brains a little bit more. If folks are affiliated with the RALRoom and they're in the mastermind, that will count as almost credibility for them to get an SBA loan, because it's a little more difficult to get that for the first time, which is where partner can be really helpful. We'll leverage someone else's experience, like Brett, who has the contacts and can help get that SBA lending as well. But hoping that we'll be able to offer that as like, hey, they're in the RALRoom. You've been in it before. You've seen the quality of people. Can that count as their experience and get folks that SBA loan soon, which is really awesome. Because I've heard of people who've had to go commercial loans first with a higher down payment and those sorts of things. So that'd be a really cool opportunity. How long do you think it'll take to go from closing on the land, which I believe is in October, to opening the memory care mansion there in Brandon, Mississippi?
Great question. We would love to do it in 12 to 18 months. And that may be a little bit conservative. That may be a little longer, but we are working on that site plan right now. That's going to take probably at least another 3 months from what we've heard, just because our city takes a little longer. We have already met with all of them. They know we're coming, if that makes sense. But our civil engineer actually has to go through the process and go to the meetings and meet with the zoning board and the county and the fire marshal and the 911 addressing, which I didn't even know was a thing until we met with the zoning board, but we've met with them now. There's a lot of little boxes that need to be ticked and checked. And of course, we have to apply for permits and all of that. That's going to take at least another probably 2 to 3 months after we close on the land. At that point, once the site plan is finished, we can actually start reaching out to contractors. And then the contractors will give us an idea, they'll give us a bid, and then we choose somebody and go from there. And from that point, from what I understand, it can be about 12 months to get it built, to get it open, to get our first residents in, to get licensed, and then be able to fill up or open up entirely.
Nice.
So I'm thinking maybe early 2026.
Very cool. Another podcast episode in 2026 and see how things are going.
I'll know a lot more about the process.
Well,
I'll have a lot more to offer.
You're offering a lot. This has been fantastic. Well, so you guys are still looking for investors. What are you looking for in an investor? We don't need to really talk about numbers that much, but who do you think would be a good investor? How can they reach out to you if they're interested in investing in the memory care home?
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. We are looking for a partner, ideally 1 or 2 partners, although we are open to partnering with maybe different groups. We've had a few conversations about that. We're totally open to all options that make sense for us. But ideally, it's something that's simple, meaning we don't feel like it would be very helpful to have maybe 10 or 20 investors because just math-wise, that's kind of complicated when it comes to distribution time and things like that. We do prefer somebody who actually we're going to require somebody to be a passive investor just because we feel strongly enough about our knowledge. I feel strongly enough about my medical knowledge, but the 3 of us all together, me, Nick, and Brett, and Laura, his wife, all 4 of us have enough knowledge together to run this thing. They have a proven model. They've done it several different times, and they're actually building 4 more right now in Texas, and they have waiting lists, which is just amazing. They've been able to replicate this and scale it. We feel pretty confident that we know how to run it. So we're really looking for somebody to contribute financially, but maybe not so much intellectually, and certainly not personal. It's just that we have this model that we really believe in, and we feel like it's going to work really well. But we're definitely open, and we love to get to know people and kind of network and just basically talk your head off about anything assisted living. If anybody's interested, we would certainly love to share our plans. And we've met with several potential investors so far, and everybody's been really, really interested in it. Just like, wow, this is totally different from anything. And so I would love to hear from anybody out there who is interested. My email is my whole name, all lowercase, @gmail.com. So CHLOEKILMAN@gmail.com. We actually have a web set up. Nick has a website. I'll send that to you if you would put it in the show notes. But we've actually already created not only a Bloom Homes website, but also a Bloom Homes investor website where people can actually go and request the financials, request the business plan, and all of that good stuff. I'll send that over to you.
We'll include that in the show notes. It's a really fantastic opportunity, especially like you mentioned, for someone passively, a physician maybe who's really, really busy and they want to get into real estate investing and they want to do it passively without having the time demands of like building a memory care home and figure out everything else. So fantastic opportunity. You're going to have no trouble whatsoever raising the capital that you need to raise because it's a really cool opportunity, unique model with experience with Brett and so forth backing you as well. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited for 2026 for the doors opening. Hopefully come down for the grand opening. We'll be sure to include all those notes in the show notes. Chloe, is there anything else that you'd like to hit on before we wrap things up?
I kind of had a lot I wanted to say, but I think we've touched on everything really important as far as the assisted living piece goes. Really, I guess I just want people to realize this is a tough thing to do, but it's very doable. Even if you're not trying to own it and operate it and build it from the ground up, which we want to do. We're trying to challenge ourselves, but also provide that really good care and kind of have our hands all in it. But even if you don't want to do that, just investing, just contributing, what's so important is good care for our seniors. And there are not enough homes open right now for them. More people are turning 65 and 75 and 85 every single day. I'm a little bit nervous about what's coming, that there may not be enough housing for people. Even though it is a process and you have to learn a lot, it's a really exciting process. It's a really creative process. And I just hope to encourage other people to do the same.
Chloe, you did an amazing job for your first podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll be sure to include everything in the show notes for how folks can contact you. And we'll get this episode out there soon. Can't wait to hear more about your journey going forward and following along in the RALRoom and outside of the RALRoom with you on this journey. Looking forward to it. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. This has been another episode of the Physicians and Properties podcast with Dr. Chloe Kilman and Dr. Alex Schloe signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.